As a psychiatrist, there's one aspect that I'm fascinated about the human brain, and that's the concept of neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity seems to be a fancy word, but it's really quite an easy concept to understand, that the brain can change its form and its function due to experience. Let me repeat that. Your brain is active. Every experience, even watching this little clip, is changing your brain, which means that we can change our brain by the experience. We've been created with this brain that can go from birth right until death, changing. So people who, if you're 40 or you're 50 or 60, you don't have to give up and say, well, I'm too old. There are people I know that at 100, they've got their PhD. At 80, they're doing their masters in economics. At 90, starting a company. You're never too old to learn. And this, I think, is one of the greatest of God's creation, is our brain. Made up of 100 billion neurons. We can change it. It's just your mindset. How you set your mind. Is it fixed or is it a growth mindset? Powerful, powerful stuff that we should take into our daily experience and look as though every day, every moment, a new creation. I've been fascinated how people have resilience and how people can, out of trauma, grow from it. And this is a very exciting part of what God has given us as a brain. Probably the greatest gift, the most complex organ that we have been created with to use. Creation didn't end after 7 days. It's still going on. And we need to be partners in creating a better world. And the greatest tool we have is this brain. The neuroscientists today who've been devoting their life to understanding the brain say that the brain is actually a bunch of muscles. And just as we have to exercise the physical part of our body by going to gym or by walking or hiking or whatever, so we need to keep our brain active and fit and flexible. There's many, many components to the brain. In fact, if we look at it from what God has given us, the work of Howard Gardner describes multiple intelligences, not just one type of intelligence. There's actually at least 9: musical, linguistic, languages, mathematics, interpersonal skills, existential form of intelligence, thinking about why we're here, what our purpose is. So our brain is multi-potential. We need to take responsibility. Responsibility is a beautiful word in English that you can divide in two, putting a line between response and ability. So it's our ability to respond. That means we can develop skills to respond and therefore choose the best response. There's a space between the situation and the response. That space, I think, is the most interesting real estate in the whole universe, because that's where we decide on what response. Now, in that space, over 90% of it is unconscious. So a lot of our choices are unconscious. So there's a little slither of this space, maybe 5 or 8%, some people estimate, where we can actually make a conscious choice. We can make a conscious choice and therefore change our response, which changes the next situation. That is creation. We can create the next situation by our choice of response. But we have to be mindful, because most of us are on autopilot. And we don't really appreciate that we can choose our response in many, many circumstances. Now, if we look more into this space, that's where I see more of God. And in that space, interestingly, there's a mind of the mind, or the mind has a mind of its own. In other words, we can be watching what's in that space. We can watch our emotions, we can watch our thoughts, we can watch our impulses. And through that almost indestructible part of us that can be watching, so we can choose. I'm often asked, what is this mind of the mind? My answer is that's what I understand the soul. The soul of a person is that part that's indestructible, that can actually choose what response we can make.